Welcome everyone to International Day of People with Disability. Today we have a number of guests joining us. Before we begin, I'd like to invite Jake Finn, the council member, to give a welcome to country.
Unfortunately, Mark, Jake isn't able to make it.
Okay. I would like to take this opportunity to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land from wherever we're meeting from today. Today I'm meeting from the land of the Camaragal people, and we're meeting from lands across New South Wales. And as we meet virtually and pay my respects to elders past and emerging, present and emerging. Thank you everyone for joining us. And before I do that too, I'd like to also acknowledge people with disability who are present with us at this event. And thank you for joining us. I'd like to thank you everyone for joining us. Some housekeeping rules for today. The meeting is being live captioned by AI Live, and this function is located at the bottom of your screen. There will also be an opportunity to ask questions and also an opportunity to type those questions into the chat box. I would like to welcome the Minister for Communities and Justice, Disability Services, the Honourable Gareth Ward, Minister for, is the Minister on? To speak to us today. Thank you, Minister, for your time and on this very important day for people with disabilities. So, the Minister. Karen?
I'm not sure he's on yet, Mark.
Okay. Oh, good. Perhaps yeah. We'll just find out where we're at and
We could, while we're waiting, play the Disability Council clip, maybe.
okay. We'll see the video of the council and then we'll circle back to that. Thank you, Karen.
We're so proud of the Disability Council of New South Wales. The Disability Council of New South Wales is made up of people with a diverse experience of disability who are working to make sure everyone is valued, respected, and has full access to all the rights and benefits our society has to offer. Equal participation and justice for all lie at the very centre of the work of the Council. The Council's priorities include influencing, advising and monitoring the New South Wales Government's policies relating to people with disability, making information accessible for all, raising awareness about the issues and concerns of people with disability, their families and carers, promoting the inclusion and participation of people with disability, reducing social, economic and health inequalities across society, embracing diversity, creating more opportunities, changing community attitudes. For more information, visit www.facs.nsw.gov.au/disability-council.
There you go, I can unmute now. I was a bit stuck about there, sorry, I'm not sure why I couldn't unmute. I would like to call on Donna Purcell, the Disability Council member, to introduce this year's theme and provide you with an update on the work the Disability Council has undertaken in 2020. Over to you, Donna.
Thank you, Mark. So good morning, everyone. I'm Donna Purcell, and I would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which we meet today. I'm on the land of the Guringai people in Mount Coolabah. Today is our third forum for the Council, and it's fitting that it is held on International Day of People with Disabilities. So thank you to everyone who is joining us. The theme for International Day for People with Disability today is building back better towards a disability inclusive and more sustainable future post-COVID 2019. And I think we're all looking very much forward to that. On behalf of the Council, I'll just briefly share some of the key concerns and issues that were raised at our 2 previous forums. The first we held with disability peaks, and the second one we held with people with disability, individuals with disability. And there are a lot of themes and great feedback that came out of those. So I'll present those under each of our 4 strategy areas, which is what we used for the forums to try and lead some of the discussion. Okay. And I'm sure that you will agree that many of, I guess, that these feedbacks will definitely fit under that theme of how we can actually build back better. So our first area of the strategy was around providing advice. And during the forum, we heard that there's a need for more proactive measures and planning for people with disability during emergency situations like the bushfires or like COVID-19. Specifically, communication needs to be improved and information needs to be more accessible. There also...
Sorry, Donna, I think the Minister has just joined us. Do you mind if we go across to the Minister?
No, that's fine.
No. I'm happy for Donna to keep on going. No, I don't want to interrupt her presentation. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Minister. So people also felt that there needed to be more training for people working in disability or in emergency services to help better equip them with knowledge for supporting people with disability. We also heard that advocacy support is essential in a crisis, and during COVID-19 lockdown, we heard that many people with disability felt isolated, and the impact that had on mental health needs to be more considered. Our second strategy area was around improvement for employment, and this was a big topic. Peak organisations felt that it was difficult for people with disability to enter the workforce if they don't have evidence of their education or past work experience to promote themselves. Technology, particularly in government departments, but also other organisations, was often outdated and then wasn't compatible with a lot of the assistive technologies that people were using. And currently, there was no funding for technology until you get a job, but it's hard to get a job or get job ready without the adaptive technology. So it was a bit of an issue there. We also were told that in particular in regard to the Public Service Commission, that some of the guidelines aren't filtering down as much as they could be, and that there's a need for alternative recruitment arrangements to have a greater focus. And in particular, it was felt that the need for adjustments, workplace adjustments, can actually work against candidates, and where people potentially are being culled out because of the need for adjustments. People with disability felt that the public sector could show more leadership in employing people with disability, and in particular, sort of in some more leadership roles. We also looked at the area of education and the role of education, and the need to have greater focus on sorry, I've just lost my notes. A greater focus on supporting young people to transition from education to school, and the need to have a greater focus on work experience. And in both forums, everyone agreed that it was critical to ensure that people with disability were able to secure not just jobs, but good jobs with the opportunity for career progression and representation across all levels in all organisations, and that included senior roles and leadership roles. People with disability said that the flexibility to work from home using varied technology as a result of COVID-19 has been a really positive thing. However, I guess there was a little bit of concern around people hoping that employers didn't make people with disability work from home because it was easier, because that's not what inclusion looks like. So I think it was about having that choice. The third strategy area was around progressing the NDIS, or an accessible NDIS. And under this banner, some of our feedback, peak organisations discussed that implementing the recommendations suggested by the June review should take a significant or should make a significant difference in the development of NDIS plans. Also discussed was the issue around eligibility for the scheme for people who are 65 or over, and the lack of support through My Aged Care for that group of people. There's a need to recognise that people over 65 with significant disability may need supplementary funding in order to support their disability. There was also concern about the different skill level in NDIS coordinators, and it was suggested that these roles might be able to specialise in particular areas of disability, and that would help both with supporting people but also help with planning. And people with disability spoke about the difficulty accessing funding for equipment and aids through the NDIS quickly, and sometimes the waiting periods were quite lengthy. And to ensure accommodation is suitable, it was felt that the NDIS needs to bring the appropriate groups of people together. The building providers, the NDIS, and people with disability to try and find better solutions for housing. And lastly, I guess under our last area of strategy, which was influencing the national strategy, the things that came up were peaks talking about the need for assistive technology for those people ineligible for the NDIS to have access to technology addressed at a national level. There was also discussion about how the New South Wales government needs to be more involved in as a stakeholder in the implementation of the National Disability Strategy, and concern was raised around people with disability aged over 65 not qualifying for the NDIS, and how we ensure that access to support to safeguard their quality of life, similar to those who are in the NDIS, is actually addressed, and that need is recognised. Despite improvements having been made in accommodation for people with disability or for young people with disability, it's still noted that there's a lot of young people living in nursing homes, and that we need to continue towards looking for solutions for this. Accessibility and support for people in regional and remote areas was also an issue, and a need for there to be more skilled people encouraged to live and work in those remote areas, but also to provide more opportunities for training and career development for those support workers who are living in those regional areas. And finally, people with disability indicated that some local governments do better at engaging with people with disability in the decision-making processes, and it was felt that it's important that all local governments do more consultation with people with disability. So that's a snapshot of a lot of feedback that we heard, and thank you, and I will hand back to Mark.
Thank you very much for that insight, Donna. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Honourable Gareth Award, the Minister for Families, Communities and Disability Service, to speak. And also I'd like to acknowledge the New South Government's initiative of having a minister with a disability leading this portfolio. So, Minister, can I invite you to speak, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And look, thank you, Donna, for that excellent presentation. I'm glad I didn't interrupt it, because I was actually really pleased to listen to the feedback that you provided. So thank you very much for that. Can I start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land at the various locations that we're meeting on today, and pay my respects to all Aboriginal elders past, present and emerging. Look, good morning, and thank you all for being here today. I'm really pleased to be joining the Disability Council's for their third forum in 2020 to acknowledge and celebrate International Day for People with Disability, a United Nations sanctioned event, and it's celebrated annually around the world. The aim of the day is to increase public awareness, understanding and acceptance of people with disability, and to celebrate their achievements and contributions. And I've just been with our friends at SSI this morning, seeing some of their great work and talking with them. The UN announces a theme to observe for International Day for People with Disability, and the annual theme provides an overarching focus on how society can strive for inclusivity through the removal of physical, technical and attitudinal barriers for people with disabilities. And as Donna mentioned, the theme for this year is building back better towards a disability inclusive, accessible and sustainable post-COVID-19 world. That's a hell of a mouthful. COVID-19 has certainly affected the way we live and work, especially the delivery of community and disability services. Since 2014, New South Wales has had a Disability Inclusion Act, and one of its objectives is to acknowledge that people with disability have the same human rights as other members of our community, and that the state and that the community have a responsibility to facilitate the exercise of those rights. During 2020, the state government reviewed the Disability Inclusion Act, and this morning I have released updated guidelines to help local councils and New South Wales government agencies develop plans that increase the accessibility and the inclusion of communities for people with disabilities. We've conducted the review by speaking with people with lived experience, peak organisations and others interested in contributing to inclusion in New South Wales, including the Disability Council. The report from that review has recently been tabled in Parliament and proposes some legislative amendments to ensure the Act remains consistent with contemporary policy and practice. During the event today, you will hear from local councils on the work they're doing in their community with community members and community organisations as part of the Disability Inclusion Action Plans. I'm really pleased that you'll also hear directly from councils today on some of the great work that is occurring. And I know that Minister Hancock is doing a tremendous job as local government minister, and I know this is something that she shares with me and feeling very strongly about. New South Wales clusters and all local councils have Disability Inclusion Action Plans, the DAPs, in place, and are mandated to report on their progress in their annual reports. The action plans are documents that clearly state what initiatives the cluster or council plans to undertake to make life more inclusive and accessible for people with disabilities. DAPs are published on agency and council websites. These DAPs have been developed through consultation and ongoing engagement with people with disability, their employees, their customers, and their communities, their disability employee networks, and the broader disability community. I encourage everyone here today to find your agency or local council DAPs and become a champion of the DAP to keep everyone accountable to the commitment they made to make your workplace or local community inclusive for everyone. DAPs are delivering many positive changes across government, such as Transport for New South Wales rolling out an $890 million over 4 years to deliver accessible transport infrastructure, and the Department of Communities and Justice working with community partners to support people with intellectual disability who come into contact with the justice system, ensuring they know and are able to exercise their full rights under the law. Local councils are also delivering on their first 4 years of DAPs Some of the great initiatives include Ballinshire Council developing positive community attitudes and behaviours by creating an access reference group that meets bi-monthly and provides advice to council on disability access issues. Randwick City Council partnered with the City of Sydney and Waverley Councils to hold a Regional Disability Services Expo. Campbelltown Council is building positive attitudes with council libraries, delivering inclusive activities with regular captioned movies, provision of Auslan interpreters where needed, the implementation of autism-specific music programs and programs to support people with disability to access the library in quiet out-of-hours periods. Wingecarry Shire Council partnered with Disability Services Australia to hold the Ability Walk at Lake Alexandra, Mittagong, with about 80 people with disabilities attending. These are just a few of the initiatives taking place in local councils, and I know there are many, many more. It also gives me great pleasure to release the updated Disability Inclusion Action Plan guidelines. The guidelines have been reviewed and updated to ensure they are consistent with contemporary policy and practice. The guidelines are to assist agencies and local councils in preparation of their new DABs and as a reference as they view and consult with people with lived experience and the community throughout their 4-year plan. These guidelines are available on the Department of Communities and Justice website and soon will be available on the local government website. These guidelines are going to be a great resource, not just for the public sector agencies and local councils, but any business and non-government organisations who want to develop DABs. I'm pleased to be part of a government that works steadfastly to remove barriers so that people who have a disability can fully participate in community and professional life. Now, before I hand back to Mark, the Chair of the Disability Council, I want to thank both Mark as Chair and Eileen as Deputy Chair with their term ending at the end of the month. I just have to say, Mark, you've done an outstanding job as Chair and I want to thank you for your commitment and your passion and leadership, as well as Eileen for your outstanding support and leadership as the Deputy Chair. And both of you can be very, very proud of the great work that you've done. In no small part, the things you've pushed me to do, like the extra money in the budget for disability access and inclusion, the employment initiatives, these are things that you've raised with me continuously, and you've been great advocates for people with disabilities right across the state, and your time on this committee and your engagement with me has undoubtedly made New South Wales a more accessible place and the life of people with disabilities in the state a better place to live in, and we're very, very grateful for your service. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the Disability Council's newly appointed Chair and Deputy Chair, Ms. Donna Purcell as Chair and Dr. Jill Duncan as Deputy Chair. I just want to say on this really important day, thank you to all members of the Council, not only for this opportunity to address you, but for the great work you've done throughout what has been an absolute bugger of a year. There's no other way to put it. It's been an absolute shocker, and people with disabilities experience, I think, greater tensions, greater frustrations and greater barriers in times like this, as do vulnerable people more broadly. But we live in a state where 50,000 more people are receiving supports as a result of the NDIS. The support and the campaign around maintaining advocacy funding was successful, and I'm very personally pleased that we've been able to give the certainty to the advocacy sector to make sure they keep on doing their great work. But there is still much more to be done. I've got some fights ahead of me at the Disability Reform Council. There's a few big ones coming on Friday at our ministers' meeting. But trust me when I say I'll be doing everything I can to make sure that the scheme continues to enhance inclusivity and access. We continue to resolve the tough issues. We don't kick them down the road. And I'll continue to do everything I can to use my time in this role to make the lives of people with disability a better place in this state. Merry Christmas to all. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and all the very, very best for 2021.
And thank you, Minister, for your warm words and your time today on this very important day for people with disability. And I also like to acknowledge the team, the Disability Council, who have been a part of that body of work that we've been trying to improve the people's lives of people with disability and in New South Wales. It's a team effort, and thank you, Minister, for those warm words. And this gives me a great segue to introduce you to the team of the Disability Council of New South Wales. As you know, Professor Eileen Baldry, the Deputy Chair, and we got Mr. Ian Hyman, Dr. Rachel Sowden, Mr. Jay King, Mr. Paul Zeller, Ms. Prue Watt, Ms. Casey Gray, and Ms. Caroline Campbell-McLean, and Dr. Jill Duncan, and Ms. Donna Purcell. So this is the team that's been working tirelessly to try to improve the lives of people with disability in this great state of New South Wales. So thanks again, Minister.
Absolute pleasure. Have a great day.
Guests, I'd like to move on to our next item on the scene. I'd like to introduce the first council, Midcoast Council, for partnering with Dundaloo Support Services. The Midcoast Council is hosting a virtual event on the 5th of December to celebrate the International Day of People with Disability. We are lucky to have a sneak preview of this event today. And the Midcoast Council have partnered with the Dundaloo Support Services and made 2 videos celebrating the work being undertaken with people with disability in this will shortly be shown. So over to the video.
Great, thank you, Mark.
Hello everyone, my name is Jason Holly. I representing Team Australia from Special Olympics World Game, and this is my silver, 5th, and gold medals.
G'day, my name is Jack Ma. I'm 18 years old. I'm turning 19 in January, and I am a rapper.
Hi, my name is Taylor. I like gymnastics.
Hi, my name is Jess and I like gymnastics.
Resistance.
Welcome to Driving Home. My name is Nathan Moore, right here on 2 Radio 104.7. I've got you guys up until 7 o'clock. I can say that I have autism and I'm proud. I'm proud.
Turn to participate. Does anyone have any questions for Calypso or Matt on their presentation?
Oh, sorry, Mark. I think we'll tell people a little bit about it if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. So I just wanted to start by acknowledging the Worimi people, which is the people on the lands on which Matt and I are meeting today, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And thanks everyone for having me. My name's Calypso and I'm the Community Development Officer at Midcoast Council. My role is fairly new at the council and it's always evolving to fit the needs of the community. We also have an Aboriginal Community Development Officer and a Youth Community Development Officer. And so it's my job to kind of fill in the gaps between these offices. Partnerships and collaborations are an extremely important part of what we do. And the goal is always to achieve what's best for the community. And that rarely means working in a silo just within council. And so I was really excited when Matt from Dundaloo Support Services approached me and asked if I would like to partner on this amazing event that he's organised in celebration of International Day of People with Disability. And so thanks again, just everyone for having us, and I'll pass it on to Maddie to tell you a bit more about it.
Thanks, Calypso, and good morning, everybody. I, like Calypso, would like just to take a moment to acknowledge the people here up in our end of the valley with Biripi people. I'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land from here and pay respect to their elders, past and present. Also to acknowledge all the other presenters online today. It's an honour to be part of this. Look, like Calypso was saying, it's very important to join together. My key point with this presentation, the way I want to talk, is it takes a village to raise a child. And, you know, I've spent the last couple of months, when we decided we were going to collaborate with council, we realised that we needed to really reach into the community, collaborate with other providers to find, you know, all these incredible people to celebrate this International Day of Disability. We realised with COVID also that it wasn't going to happen in a traditional way like a barbecue or a gathering. And, you know, like COVID, we've all learned new things. One of the great things that happened is the ability to do live streams. So I thought, why don't we just do a live stream and find all these incredible people? And I did. The more I got involved, the more extensive it became. And as you can see from the video we just watched, originally we thought, let's do a concert, the old saying, let's do a concert, but it became bigger than that because we realized that, there were sports people, there were dancers, there were singers, there were public speakers, the Toastmasters people who are learning to do wonderful speeches. We've got a beekeeper, a very funny man, who's a blind fellow who I just fall in love with this guy. He's so funny that he's going to present and come on stage with his dog, and also a lady from New South Wales, from Blind Dogs New South Wales ACT. So there's a lot of representation. We'll have 2 Auslan interpreters there. And so it's inclusive. And it became really apparent, through this that the inclusiveness was very important. So you've seen there a little bit of what we're going to be doing. But just to tell you a little bit about myself and how I became involved with this, I'm a father of a 10-year-old boy with ASD. I'm a musician by trade. I've spent my life touring and doing things like that. Along comes our Marley, and our life changes. So I understand the things that happen for a little boy growing up with his disabilities, and the challenges he faces, the things that need to happen in a day. I understand that on an hourly basis. I understand as a parent what that's like to have a person in your family that needs such support. So from the ground up, I get it. And as a musician, we've travelled. Okay, we travelled to Norfolk Island, to give you an example. We took our little Marley to our family for Norfolk Island for 3 years. He started school there. And he started school, and we realised there was problems. Things weren't going right. He was not enjoying himself. But the community on Norfolk Island looked out for him. When he went shopping and he had his meltdown or things weren't right, they looked after him. And it wasn't, for us, it was like, very endearing for that. But it also reinforced that it takes a village to raise a child. And that, after 3 years, we thought, look, we need to come back to Australia. The NDIS was just rolling out. We needed more support. So we moved back to Taree here and to access that. But I instantly became very involved with the community, with a soccer club called the Rainbow Warriors. We started playing soccer. We met all the families, and we realised that it was a very, very big community of families with kids with disability. I also teach music for Don Spencer from Play School for the Australian Children's Music Foundation. People who know Don from Play School, well, it's very active here. So I spent a lot of time teaching, 5 years working in the schools, but very closely with the Taree support unit. And most of my fun times have been with these people. I've known many of them since they've been young, right through to now. And just last year, before COVID and before the bushfires, there was a song competition that came up. And I said, why don't we write a song? And of course, I thought, well, it's Friday morning. Every morning I was there on Friday. And the kids said, yes, let's write a song. So I said, well, it's Friday morning. Once again, I wrote up on the board. And young Caleb, one of my favourite human beings, an autistic kid, goes, I can't wait for this day to end, Matty. And I thought, how great, let's write that. It's Friday morning once again. I can't wait for this day to end. And we wrote, and we penned this song bit by bit together. And over 3 months, we realised we had a song. And that was amazing. So we got the song, we thought, great, we sang it every week. And then I thought, let's get this kid in the studio. So I took him to the studio and we recorded. And it was the best experience. I've spent my life in studios, but to record with these guys was an incredible experience. We got a killer band for them, and we made the song a reality. And then we took it one step further. And we made a music video for them. And then Caleb said to me, "We're going to be famous, Matty." I said, "You sure are." And then of course the bushfires came, COVID came, and our lives changed. Everyone's life changed, and I rang Don. I said, "Don, would you sing on this for us?" So Don Spencer came and sang on this song with these kids. So as part of this concert, I'm going to be able to showcase children like these. We're going to see a little snippet of that video at the end of this presentation. But the night's going to be filled with those sorts of things. But what became apparent in working with Dundaloo and taking my role is the importance of the outcome for every participant, and that inclusiveness in everything is paramount. It's important for every participant to reach out to whatever part of the community they can to access the support they need, whatever provider. And so it's really important for there to be lots of different providers for these people to access what they need in a really inclusive, holistic way. And that's my passion. It's part of what I do as a community liaison, is connecting the dots, making sure that, you know, we're all working together. And this concert is a great example of that. You know, I could talk a waterfall about being a dad and being part of, you know, of what I do. But I think having that experience as a family, in my family, I think you understand more what needs to be done. And I think this concert's going to be something that's just, you know, inspirational. I'm hoping that people can get online. There'll be a link on the International People with Disabilities Facebook page. You can click on that, or you can go to Pluto Entertainment. It's a Facebook page. If you just type in Pluto Entertainment and go and like the event there, it's called a celebration of ability and diversity. And actually, let's just go to that, because when we decided to put on a concert, it was bigger than that. I said, why don't we call it a celebration of ability and diversity? So we've stuck to that. It's getting a lot of legs online. Today, it's an honour to just be here and talk to you guys about it, but also hear what's going on, you know, around and outside of what we do here in Taree and the Great Lakes, just to fit in. Calypso's from Foster end of it, and we're up here in Taree, so it's all one big valley. So look, I really just want to thank everyone for taking some time to listen to us and maybe coming to watch our live stream. I'd like to thank Calypso too for being such a support with this Midcoast Council, and also the other providers. You know, we've got other providers, Breakthrough, Valley Industries, Midcoast Assist, who have, you know, helped us collate these people to bring this to everybody. And I'll go back to that thing where it says, you know, it takes a village to raise a child, and if everyone's got that mindset, then you always have a great outcome. And I think that's my main point for today, that it's taken a lot of people to look after lots of people. And I love my job. And I'd like to thank Mr. Ward. It's lovely to hear you speak. And Mark Tomer, mate, what a treat to hear you speak. It's just lovely. Deirdre Pinder, Karen Jones, Mamie Wooden, and Damien White from Family and Community Services. Unbelievable support, reaching out and asking us to present today. So on behalf of Dundaloo, up here in Taree, and I'm sure Calypso, I'd like to say thanks. We're going to finish with a little video so you can meet my Sunday crew. They call themselves the Sunday crew. They named themselves. So enjoy them. You'll see them on Saturday night, the full concert. So enjoy the video, and remember, it takes a village to raise a child. Thank you.
G'day everybody, I'm Riley Shakespeare. I'm from the Sunday Crew.
Hi, I'm Caleb. I wrote some of the lyrics in the song.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I'm part of the Sunday Crew. I love being with the Sunday Crew and I love the Sunday song. And the day that follows, I'll be laying on the beach. Hi, I play ukulele for the Sunday Crew. My name's Joshua Gibbs.
G'day, I'm Reese, I'm 13 and I'm from the Sunday Crew.
Hello, my name's Travis of Sunday Crew.
Hey, my name's Maddie and I'm from the Sunday Crew. I'm part of the Sunday Crew.
G'day, I'm Dylan and I'm part of the Sunday Crew.
Don't want Monday to come. The weekend's nearly gone. The week's gone and on. This is not the Where's the Sunday Crew? 2-day weeks, 5-day weekends. This is the way it ought to be. Where I'll be running and swimming and jumping.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have any any questions, guess, for our presenters? So feel free to post them up on the chat or just. Or you can just ask them.
So I've been sent a question to ask. So I think quite a few people are quite impressed with the Sunday Club, and they wanted to know, how did Dundaloo collaborate with the Midcoast to get the Sunday Club up and running?
Oh, the Sundays. Well, it's been a really big network there, because not only do I teach for the Australian Children's Music Foundation, but I work very closely with the support unit at Taree High. And of course, it's a close-knit community. So the support unit, I teach them music, but I go in there under the guise of with Dundaloo as well as a music teacher. So it's been a long journey. And then of course, Dundaloo, you know, a lot of these kids are supported in varying degrees through different providers, but also through Dundaloo as well. So it's just a big network of lots of kids, all from different parts of our community. But yeah, that's sort of how that came about. Yeah, but you know, I tell you, just, you know, every time I see that little video and I see the kids, it's just so inspiring. And Taree, is Taree a country town? Yes, there's a question there. It sort of is. What would you say, Calypso? It's still country in a way, yeah.
Yeah, it's about 23,000 people, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you still get to know lots of faces. You know, you're not lost in the crowd. It's what we like it up here. It's good.
There's another question. I think this is more for Calypso. So so does Midcoast Council have any advice to other councils in collaborating with service providers?
That's a good question. And I think, like I said, I'm really new to my role, but basically what I have done is contact as many people as I can and just be really open about it. I think we were really lucky in this instance that Matt approached us, and he's the driving force behind it, and I just supported him. But for me, I think it's just having an open mind, and I do feel like councils can get quite silo-y and just want to hold on to what they've got. But we have to remember that we're working for the community. It's our job to serve the community, and to achieve that, we can't just work by ourselves. So, I mean, for me in my role, I can't speak for council as a whole, but I've just tried to be as open and approachable as possible and tried to make anything happen and support in any way I can. So that's more of a personal opinion, I suppose. Thank you.
There's another, I think, question, I think probably more to you, Matt, around, are there relationships developing between people with and without disability, I guess, through this?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, you know, everybody loves the Sunday crew. These kids have just emerged. You know, I think you see the relationship develop over a period of time. Yeah, but that's a definite, you know, that's one thing about these sorts of things, that it promotes relationships to be built. That's you know, that's always in the forefront of my mind is, you know, I know with my little boy, he has trouble at 10 years old making relationships, or being, you know, making friendships. So anything that is going to support a friendship being made or another connection is extremely important. So yeah, definitely, absolutely. And
another one is, do you have any more songs on the horizon?
Yes, actually we do. If you know, there's a little guy there, he's autistic and just speaks very clearly. He was one playing ukulele. And just before last week, I'm not there today, but I will be tomorrow morning, he said to me, Matty, now remember, this kid started playing ukulele at the beginning of COVID, and got to the end of COVID, he said, look what I can play. I went, wow. He started as a left-hand upside-down ukulele player. He switched it around. His mum bought him a left hand, and now he's writing these most beautiful melodies. So we've already started one. And he said, and you know what he said to me? This is a really cool thing. The ukulele player said to me, Matty, we write songs. He said, we're clever, us autistic kids. He said, we're more focused. he said, we're far more creative. He said, we think better, just like that. It was, and, you know, as a musician, I understand all the great musicians I work with, oftentimes spectrum people. And, you know, when you're working in support units and you're working with autistic or Asperger's kids, you'll find that sort of brilliance. On the night, we have a young guy, on Saturday night, you'll meet a young guy called Jack Ma. Jack's Asperger's. He talks very fluidly about his trouble at school, being bullied. But then he talks about the support he's had, you know, in getting to where he's at now. And, you know, his brilliance in being able to rap is just, you know, incredible. So I see all this brilliance. I'm working with it every day. And every day Jack Ma, there's somebody just asked a question, Jack, M-A-H-E-R. So yeah, it's going to be a great event. You know, I'm hoping that as many of you people can tune in and watch it and support. And, you know, on the night, if you are logging on, type in and say, hey, that was great. You know, because they're going to be able to see the live stream coming down on the event. They're going to be able to see people just watching on saying how good they are. And I think that's going to be wonderful.
I just wanted to add as well that if you aren't able to log on to the live stream, the video will be available later for viewing.
Oh, of course, yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Great. And we've actually put the link up as well for that event in the chat, so people can go to the chat and provide that. So I think there's one more question, but I think they're going to ask that themselves.
Hey Matt, it's Damien. How are you?
Hi Damien.
Can you just tell the story about the young boy in the North Sydney jersey?
Oh, that's great. Well, his name's Nathan Moore. He'll tell his story. I don't know how long, I could talk a waterfall about this guy, but I met him one day. My Marley was having a meltdown because he missed the train. We waited for 2 hours to watch the Pacific National come through and he missed it. And anyway, I ended up at McDonald's trying to give him some solace. And there's this young guy sitting there in a football jersey with a bunch of model trains. And of course they became mates. So this 23-year-old big fella decided he was going to help my boy with his trains. And then I realized that he liked to sing. And I watched, he'd post things on Facebook of him singing country songs. So he did model trains, he sings country songs. And then I was listening to the radio, he does drive time Friday night on our local radio station. And so I approached him, I said, Nathan, how would you feel about singing as part of this concert? And he said, of course I'd sing, you know. And I said, well, what would you like to sing? So I'm going to sing a country song. So one of the most endearing things you're going to see on the night is when you meet this young fella, Nathan Moore. He's going to sing with a band. It's the first time he's really sung with a band. He's going to wear his Knights jersey. That's his most prized possession. I said, what would you like to wear if there's TV cameras? He said, well, I got my Knights jersey. I said, great, you wear that, mate. So he's going to be wearing his Knights jersey. So when Nathan Moore comes on, he's very clear about speaking about his autism. You'll see it in his video, but extremely inspiring. And I think that's another thing too. The people watching on, particularly younger people, autistic or ASD kids watching on, seeing these people do such wonderful things, it's going to be inspiring. It's just, you know, brilliant. So yeah, can't wait to see Nathan Moore sing. It's going to be great.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Calypso.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Calypso. Just going to move on to our next item is the Snowy Valleys Council. I would like to invite Tracy Wiggins, Manager Community Service at the Snowy Valleys Council, Tambaramba, and Martin Brown, Chair of the Disability Inclusion Access Reference Group, to present on the work they're doing as a community to improve access and inclusion for the people of the Snowy Valley and its visitors. Do we have Tracy and Matt online?
Yes, we're here. Thanks, Mark and Donna. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are presenting today, the Narragaow and Wiradjuri people of the Walgal Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I would like to extend my respects to custodians on which you are viewing or hearing this online forum today. We've been asked to present to you today about our group experience with creating and progressing a plan, the Disability Inclusion Action Plan, or DIAP, to increase access and inclusion for all people in our community. Achievement of the DIAP would not have progressed as well as it has without the formation of the Disability Inclusion Action Reference Group. Next slide, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tracy Biggins. Sorry, we're having a bit of a problem with our video. I don't think you can see us at all. So to tell you about how we actually formed the DIARC and the actual work of the DIARC, I have to go back a bit and tell you a bit about the story, which begins with the development of the Disability Inclusion Action Plan. So in 2016, when it became known that public authorities must have a Disability Inclusion Action Plan, or a DIAP, we started our consultation with our communities in the former Tumbarumba and Tumut Shire councils. What became evident from the very beginning was how existing infrastructure did not contribute to livable communities for people with disability. Some of the things that we were actually discussing as an able-bodied person, I realised that I had no idea at all. So what came out of that was this information was captured and went into our final DIAP. So not long into this journey of developing our DIAP, it became apparent that we needed professional help to get the plan to paper. A joint project was started with Greater Hume Shire Council, who was also on their journey at the same time, and a consultant was engaged. And a working party of council staff, community members for both councils assisted the development of the framework. Oh, thank you, whoever that was. After the framework was developed, both councils worked separately with the consultant to form the actions in their individual DIAPs for their local government areas. In May 2017, the Snowy Valleys Council DIAP was adopted, ready for implementation. Next slide, please.
On the 12th of May 2016, the New South Wales Government merged Tumbarumba Shire Council with Tumut Shire Council, and the business of being a merged council took priority. Several new organisational structures were implemented, with both positions and titles changed, so what was on the Disability Inclusion Action Plan had to be reconciled with who was where and doing what. The plan became lost. Staff had left council and there was no momentum in getting work on the plan to happen. Next slide, please.
So as Community Services Manager, I was involved with the forming of the DIAP from the very beginning. One of the actions of the DIAP was to form what is now called our DIARC, our Disability Inclusion Access Reference Group. And the idea of that DIARC was to actually advise council and help steer the achievement of the actions of the DIAP. So we had to find members for the DIAP. An advertisement for membership went out in papers across the local government area, but it still didn't really attract any people to it. Some original working party members were still involved. So through word of mouth and these people, membership occurred. So finally, sitting around the table was this wonderful group of enthusiastic people, and the work on the DIAP progressed. And that's when I said, there is a God. Next slide, please.
At the first meeting of the Disability Inclusion Action Reference Group, I was elected chair. I'm Martin Brown and a member of a number of community groups. After a serious accident, before I could walk again, I used a wheelchair, forearm support frame, a pickup frame and crutches over 3 years of recovery. I quickly learnt firsthand that easy access to all areas is not a given for all people. Wendy Arentz, Another community member of our group is blind. She has a guide dog, Amos. Wendy has highlighted many issues that we as sighted people do not notice or encounter. For example, she has had many issues with off-leash areas for dogs in Tumut, with Amos being harassed by the other dogs in this off-leash area. She has also highlighted the issue of raised surfaces at street crossings. Grace McEachran was an original member of the working group. She is the mother of a severely disabled adult son. Grace has been a strong advocate in our group, and one of her achievements has been the establishment of a group home in Tumbarumba. Judy Cousins is a businesswoman and has a background in adult learning. She is very interested in the welfare of the community. And Judy Boyd is another community member of our group, and she is a carer. Next slide, please.
So we realised that in our membership there were some actual gaps in actually meeting the needs of the communities. So we actively went out and sought membership of organisations that support people with disability from birth to the grave. From left to right on the screen, you'll see our professional members. So Hugh Packard is CEO of Valma Support Services. Valma provides support for people with disability and the frail aged. Services include independent and group living, lifestyle choices and connections, such as transition to work programs. Snowy Valleys Council has a memorandum of agreement with Valma to provide recycling and refuse services. And within this recycling and refuse services, there is also an employment program for people with the online editor for IDEAS. So IDEAS stands for Information on Disability, Education and Awareness Services. IDEA's purpose is to support their supporters and communities to reach their full potential. IDEAS is driven by people with disability for people with disability. Snowy Valleys Council has a direct link to IDEA's website for people seeking information on disability services and facilities in their local government area and across Australia. Hillary is also a carer for a parent with disability. Catherine Anderson is an educator at Courage on Therapy Plus. Catherine's expertise is with children under 5, and she provides support in supported playgroup services, connects families with the specialists that they need. And our actual interaction with Catherine has been in the early childhood area field, where Catherine has actually supported our children's services to include children with disabilities into their environments. And then we have Melissa Bradshaw. So Melissa is a teacher at Snowy Valley School. Snowy Valley School is a school for children with disability located in Tumut. And Melissa has been instrumental in starting a work experience program for older students with Snowy Valleys Council this year. And it's been a very successful program, and one that she is and we're very proud of. Next slide, please. Sorry, I moved it away and it's actually my slide. So on our DH, we actually have a lot of council representation, which has been questioned and questioned widely. The council staff involved all have a strong sense of community and a real wish and desire to see the best outcomes for people in the Snowy Valleys Council. All staff involved in the DH have experience in working with people with disability. As issues arise concerning council services and facilities, the relevant council staff person is invited into the next meeting. And that's where they sit with the DH and we actually talk about the issues, what's happening, and work together to solve the issues. And then those council representatives will take it back to their areas and talk to their staff and usually come back to the next meeting to say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to work to solve it. So our council representatives are Councillor Kate Cross. Kate has been in the education area for a long time and is a strong advocate for people with disabilities in the Snowy Valleys Council area. Councillor Julia Ham has strong experience in early childhood education and is a strong advocate for children across our region. Matthew Suter is our Risk Management Officer. Matthew is an individual that he brings to the group a different perspective, advises on risks and provides a balanced voice to any of our endeavours. Matthew's previous employment was with the NDI funded service. Next slide, please.
Sophie Gann, through her position as Tourism Officer, is interacting with businesses in our area and able to promote disability access and facilities. For example, with the construction of the first rail trail on public land in New South Wales, businesses are starting to work towards cycle tourism for people of all abilities. Amanda Lewis, through coordination of services to promote living at home for the aged, Amanda provides perspectives on how older people are having issues within our community. And Tracy Wiggins, it's not just about her job. Tracy is working to make our communities livable for all abilities. Next slide, please.
So there are 4 major themes to a DAP: attitudes and behaviours, livable communities, employment and systems and processes. Snowy Valleys Council our DAP has 36 actions. All 36 actions, thanks to the work of the DAP, are now started and 20 are completed. So what are their other achievements? So council staff are now starting to get used to thinking about access for all abilities in the design and construction of new infrastructure across the local government area. One example of this was the Adelong Creekscape Walk, which follows the creek in Adelong. So they'd actually done some work to it, and then probably near completion stage, the executive director of that area went out and had a look, came back to me excited and said, "Tracy, you'll be so proud of me." And when I questioned him, he said, "Well, we were just going to leave it gravelled." He said, "And then I heard your voice in the background saying, not good enough for people with disability, not good enough for mothers and prams." So they actually surfaced the Adelong Creekscape area. They come to us and ask, and especially come to me and ask when we're doing upgrades to parks and gardens. And now our parks and gardens are seeing wider pathways, better accessibility within the gardens themselves. Then now I've been questioning the plants that they put in, for sensory, for children with autism. Areas that children can play in, plants that will withstand children running through them if they want that sensory interaction. They're actually looking at other things they can do within those parks for people with disability. And then the equipment is now being upgraded to be accessible for all abilities. So there are other achievements. Through the issues arising from Wendy, who we were talking about earlier, Council is now reviewing the leash-free areas for dogs. Accessibility to public toilets, and then previous membership by Billy at Links, who saw the worth in actually being involved in the DRH, actually funded for us master locksmith access keys for after hours access to council facilities and amenities, which has been great. They also saw the worth of being in the meetings. So through some funding that they've had, actually put through some funding for something as simple as purchasing tea, coffee and biscuits for morning teas when our DRH meet. Other current work of the DRH, which is not an action, which wasn't an action of DAP, and then a lot of the actions that we have achieved too, other than the 36 actions, have not been actions of our DAP, and we're fastly becoming aware that the DAP is an evolving document. It's not static, it's been fluid. So what other things have we done? At the moment, we're working with the Snowy Valleys Council Event Activation Officer to ensure local events are accessible to all abilities. This includes review of event applications and processes to include such things as access to and appropriate toileting facilities, location of disability parking that's close to the events, accommodation and transportation. So in closing, to begin with, it was Houston, we have a problem. I was unsure as to how we would even begin to progress the achievement of the DAP. Without the DART to guide, question and suggest councils and suggest, the DAP would not have progressed at all. Maybe yes, but not as well as it has. So where are we at next? We're now at the planning stage for the next DAP for 2021 to 2025. So in closing, thank you for this opportunity to discuss and tell our story. And I believe across councils there's many more to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Snowy Valley Council. Guess I'd like to have this opportunity for any questions for our presenters, for Martin or Tracy. Feel free to type it on the chat, or just give us an indication you'd like to ask the question.
Yes, there is a question. What are some of the issues that have faced the Disability Inclusion Access Reference Group in dealing with the council and the community? And do you have any advice for other councils?
Yeah, Tracy. Look, I'll answer that one. One of the biggest issues really for us in getting the work progressed was council working in silos, council staff working in silos, and not even acknowledging that.
You're just dropping in and out there, Tracy.
Oh, sorry. I'll try again. Is that better?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so the biggest issue in brief was acknowledgement by council staff that this is their plan. As we said in the beginning, the merger impeded that actual progress because we were so busy with getting on with the business of being a merged council. And then from there, it really was about accountability by council staff and actually owning that plan by all council staff. It was almost a siloed approach that sits within the Community Services Division. That's your work. So I believe we've actually crossed that boundary now. So what would be my advice to other councils? Probably be as bullheaded as I have and just keep putting your plans in front of everybody and saying, this is your plan. The other learning from this also was, even though we consulted from the very beginning, the way our plan was written by able-bodied people. On reflection, that plan could have been a lot better written and actually being able to achieve better for the people with disability in Snowy Valleys Council. So it has been, yes, a plan in progress, still evolving, but I'm really looking forward to the 2021-2025 action plan. I think it's going to be a whole lot more inclusive for all abilities.
Great. Another question has come through. So what work is being done to assist people, I guess, with disability to access the Snowy Mountains? And like maybe that tourism, I think you sort of mentioned that, I think it's to do with the tourism bit.
Yeah, look, and probably some of the biggest work around that and access Snowy Valleys has been around. I don't know whether you actually.
Volume is coming in there again, Tracy. Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, sorry. We've got mountains here and it's often very hard for that signal to get over, I'm sure. So when we're talking about tourism, yes, that's probably opened up another area within council, and I'm hoping I'll answer this question. So let's talk about physical location, and that's probably a good example of our actual, where our visitor information centre is. Work was done to make that accessible for people of all abilities, just even in accessing through the main door. Out the back of where the Visitor Information Centre is located is what's called our Regional Transaction Centre, which is the corporate part of council. And within that sits a multi-service outlet in Tumbarumba side for a lot of the aged services we provide, such as Meals on Wheels, social support, those things. But in order to actually get there, because the door to the multi-service outlet was not wide enough, and to widen it probably would have made the back of that building collapse, ramps have been installed to actually make access from the Visitor Information Centre to out the back to where those services are. But that's been a beginning. But having the VIC staff situated at the front where people access has been really good too, because they have become a voice for the council as well, and they're the face that people see when they first walk in there. So it's been great in that way to actually open up and make people aware. Cycle tourism, yes, council's realised that that is something that we actually, an avenue we can explore and which will be great for our communities. But again, in opening up cycle tourism for people with disabilities, our actual accommodation facilities are not great in accommodating people with disabilities. So that's another area we're currently looking at now and encouraging those providers of accommodation to be a lot more active in. I'm hoping that answers your question.
I think it would. Thank you so much.
Any questions for the chair of the Disability Reference Group?
Oh, yep. I've just got one more. How have you, hang on, let me just read this one. How have you found working with the council to push through some of the ideas that come through?
I happen to be a former member of council staff, and so I know a lot of the particular staff that we need to deal with. And so if I don't meet them in council facilities, I can see them down the street and ask the questions. They're quite approachable. It's just a case of knowing whom to approach when you have a situation that needs to be dealt with.
Just a question for the chair. Are there been any opportunities for people with disability to be employed with the council or get some sort of training with council? Or?
Yes, at our Tumut office, we're working with work experience students, and they're getting access to what it's like in the workplace. Our risk management officer has an offsider now, and he is getting great experience being part of the team. He has the roles that he likes, the work experience student likes to do. And so we're starting, yes, we're slow in the uptake, but we are starting in getting access for people with a disability working with council.
Great. Will there be any scholarships or any pathways for a solid employment with council? Is that probably the next phase? Or?
Yes, they're being worked on. One of our areas is children's services with a long day care centre, and there are traineeships available there, and we may be able to get one of those focused to somebody with a disability. We've also had work experience students working there with long day care.
Great, thank you, Chair.
Sorry, can I just add a bit to that? So Martin just mentioned our long day care centre here in Tumbarumba. We actually do have a staff member there with disability that works there. And children, especially children under the age of 5, are a great place to employ people with disability because, one, children are very curious and will ask questions, but if they're replied to honestly, they understand, they develop their understanding, but they are also very accepting. And that staff member up there actually has wonderful relationships with children. She's a hidden gem. Has some talents we weren't even aware she had. We used to have an old piano up there, and one day she was sitting there when I happened to be there and started playing, and I said, I didn't know you could play the piano. She was never ever taught. She plays by ear. So, we can't discount people with disabilities because everybody has had hidden talents, certainly.
There's one more question. Have the council staff had disability awareness training?
Yes, I did see that question pop up. So that is actually an action under the Disability Inclusion Action Plan. It has been started.
Voice again.
Our children's services staff, yes, they get introduced to an induction, but I have a very strong early childhood background too, so I'm very strong on that. We start with that. In a couple of other areas, yes, they have. That action is really the action of our human resources team. They've been they are very aware of that action and are starting to include that on their work now we're doing online boarding within council for induction, so it will be included within that.
Thank you. A question for the chair. Has there been any opportunity in council to promote disability inclusion and community awareness and attitudes for people towards people with disability?
Yes, we've been a bit hamstrung with COVID-19 and the restrictions that's placed on using council facilities. But it is our aim, yes, to increase the visibility and the understanding of people in the community about those with a disability or mobility issues.
Thank you, Chair. I guess, do you have any other questions for our presenters?
No, I think that's it. Thank you to you both.
Thank you very much, Tracy and the Chair for the presentation from Council. I think we're just moving on to, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. I'm so pleased the Minister could join us today, considering his ongoing commitments to improve access and inclusion for people with disability and their families and carers in New South Wales. It's great to hear from the Midcoast Council and Dundaloo Support Services and Snowy Valley Council on their DAPs. Under Section 17C of the Disability Inclusion Act, the Disability Council has a responsibility to advise public authorities about the content and implementation of the Disability Inclusion Action Plans. I'd like to give a shout out to those local councils who have already provided their latest progress reports and acknowledge the work taking place in the Central Coast and Bailiani councils. Great to hear about what is happening at the community level to support inclusion. If there are council staff watching and you would like to share the work you're doing with your community, please reach out to the Disability Council. Or if you have any further questions, please reach out to via our email. We'll type it up in our questionnaire, disabilitycouncil@fax.nsw.gov.au. The link to the presentation will be sent around and will soon be available on the Disability Council New South Wales webpage. Again, a warm thank you for your joining us today, and have a lovely afternoon on International Day of People with Disability. And thank you for all your support and work to increase the work towards having an inclusive New South Wales and then even better, Australia. So thank you all for your support and work, and thank you and goodbye and enjoy your afternoon. And happy IDPWD. Thank you, everyone.